Welcome back to the channel. We are just going to do some other little jobs that need to be done while I'm waiting for those parts to get back from the machine shop. I just finished putting in those new small end bushings there and reaming them. Here's one of the old ones right here. It's pretty simple to get these out. I use a little tool that I made up quite some time ago. I'll just grab it and show it to you. Stand by. I'll put this thing on pause. Okay, there it is right there. You can see the other old bushing is still in it. All it is a piece of tubing, a big washer, piece of threaded rod, and on this end I happened to find a real nice flange nut when I was building this up, so I just took and I made a little bit of a notch on that flange nut so it would go right in the middle of the bushings. So what you do is you put your connecting rod in between here, sort of like that, and then you push your new bushing on this side, and all it does when you tighten this up, of course you heat this end up with a heat gun before you try to do anything, get it good and hot. But then you start screwing this in, and it just pushes the new bushing in while it pushes the old bushing out. So anyway, simple to make. I've even seen people use a big socket for that end. So anyway, that works really good. Here's my reamer that I use for this sort of thing. That's an adjustable reamer. I usually back it off about a turn and then work my way in about a quarter turn at a time till I get a really nice fit with that connecting, or that gudgeon pin or wrist pin, whatever you want to call it. It's in there. I can't feel any tipping motion in there at all, and yet it moves freely. That's exactly what I'm looking for a nice new fit with those nice new wrist pins. So yeah. So, other than a bath, those are ready to go into the engine. I think I mentioned before I polished them up, so I want to give them a really good scrubbing and soap and water, to make sure that I don't have any of the polishing compound left on those rods when I do my reassembly. But anyway, that's it for the new rod bushings. I'm kind of happy about these ones too, because they have that spiral oil groove in there. It kind of helps to keep the lubrication in place while your engine's running, and even when it's not. So, okay. A couple more little jobs the owners wanted me to do with this was to take the old drag bars off and fit these more conventional sort of handlebars on. Anyway, that was really straightforward doing that. It's just a matter of taking all this stuff off, putting the controls and the grips back on. Anyway, after I got done with that, I was looking at this chain guard here, and I got to thinking, you know, it would look, I hate looking at stuff that's painted silver on a motorcycle because it never looks right to my eye. At least it just picks it up, you know, right out of the clear blue sky. If something's painted silver, it just draws my eye, at least. What I was gonna do was take that chain guard off and paint it black, but then I decided I'd try a little bit of acetone on it and see how hard it was to remove the paint. And all I've done so far is just, you know, wipe that off with acetone, so you can see the difference between the paint and the chrome section. And the chrome, I haven't even started to polish that, but it really doesn't look bad at all. So anyway, I'm going to carry on just wiping the old paint off this part of the chain guard, and I may be able to clean that up without even taking it off the bike. Okay, well, that's not perfect, but it's a lot better looking than a silver painted chain guard. I mean, that's pretty darn good. There's a little bit of, you can see the staining here from where That's probably acid etching there, and I'm not going to worry about up under here because that's up under the side cover where you don't see it anyway. But I mean, you know, at a distance of 15 or 20 feet away, there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, this bike is no beauty queen, so that took me all of about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, 25. So that's an improvement. Okay, so while we're in the process of giving this thing a little cleanup, at least, the front wheel, it certainly isn't new. There's some rusty areas right down there that you can see at the bottom of the wheel. But I think that'll clean up pretty good for the most part. But let's get back here. Sit down on the old stool and have a look at this back wheel here. This did not fare quite so well. Some of it looks alright, and then you get to this. So, what am I going to do with that? Well, I'm probably going to use the old duct tape trick on this part of the rim here. And try to hide most of that crappy rust. I remember when this bike was here 5 years ago, this wheel was a little bit like that, but not as bad. But like I said, it's been sitting out in the rain for 5 years, and it was probably sitting with this part down, so it rusted up pretty bad. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is sand this off, because that is so bad that you got to start with something kind of aggressive like sandpaper. So I'll probably start off with probably about 120 grit, and make my way into something a little smoother until I get at least a smooth finish there, and then I'll go from that. Well, that's about as clean as I'm going to get that wheel with just sandpaper. But I was not asked to do this by the client here, but I think I'm going to do it anyway, and of course I won't be charging them because I wasn't asked to do it. So, but anyway, the older bikes, they used to paint this inner section. Sometimes it'd be black, sometimes it'd be red, sometimes then it would have a little pinstripe around that just to make it look pretty. Of course, this particular model is a 1969, so it wouldn't not have had those painted rims, but they kind of look nice. And with the other little tricks I want to do to this to clean up this wheel, I think it might look nice. Anyway, I'll show you that step by step as I go through it. Yeah, something else occurred to me here when I was looking at this. These are not the bolts from the clinchers that are supposed to go in the rims, and on modern tires you really don't need the clinchers, but it makes me wonder what they have for a bolt head sitting on the inside of that rim. I mean, is it just a hex bolt head in there that can wear through the tube and cause a flat tire? Or is it a nice round-headed carriage bolt that won't hurt anything? Anyway, I got to thinking that what I've seen so far with this bike, I don't want to take any chances with myself or anybody else riding this until I have a look at that and make sure that whatever's in there is safe to ride on. Okay, well, I did break the tire off the bead there and pried it back with a C-clamp so I could have a good look at these the heads of these bolts right here. They are indeed hex head bolts, but whoever installed it has probably got about four layers of electrical tape over the heads of those bolts before they even put the rubber rim tape in. So I'm quite confident that they're not going to cause any troubles as far as wearing through the bead or the top. Wearing through the tire is concerned. Yeah, you can tell I don't work from what do they call that? A script. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with this and see if I can improve the look of that rim a little bit. I'm not going to fuss with the spokes on this bike or anything, but like I said, I think I can get that rim looking a lot more presentable than it is. Let's see what happens. Right, 43 little pieces of masking tape. And that's a blast with some etching primer on there. So once that's dry, I'm going to apply a coat, I think, of black to this this section of the rim right here, the raised portion, the raised bead in the middle there. And then I'll go from there, because the bike's already red. I don't see the point in putting a red bead on there. I think, you know, I'll do it black like these ones on the old ES2 are. Okay, that's the next step there. Let me think now. I just wanted to mention that some places you see there's not a lot of paint, like right there. That's because I'm not interested in painting this part. I'm interested in painting this central part here. And you'll find out why in a moment. Ta-da! Just look at that. All the way around. Get this thing into focus. The only thing that looks more like a brand new rim than that is a brand new rim. And if the center portion had not been so rusted up, I wouldn't have had to paint it, and the whole thing would have looked like a brand new rim then. But see if I can show you a little something there. Here's a little spot. There seems to be an overlap of something or other there. I wonder what that is. Well, I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. But anyways, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. The key to this is patience. So I'm going to show you what I did. Well, now I'm going to tell you one of my dirty little secrets. I showed this to you before on a Norton Commando chain guard, but that is a nice piece of aluminum duct tape that I've cut to a width of about 5/8 of an inch. Round off the end, it makes for a nicer joint. But what I'm going to do is just lay that in there like that after I peel the backing off, and if I'm lucky, that should go in there on the first try, and like I say, if I'm lucky, it ought to come out looking like a nice chrome rim with a black bead in the middle. So I'm going to start sticking that down a little bit at a time here. So I might as well start right now while the camera's running. It's a little bit tricky to, when you've cut the tape flat like that, it's a little bit tricky to get the paper off the back, but once you get it started, it's not so difficult. Okay, there now. Get the paper started. You don't want to kink this tape if you can help it, because if you kink it, then it's going to look, well, it's going to look kinked. I'm going to start by sticking this down here. Take your time. Be careful. Go slow. I've actually waited 8 hours for this black paint to dry. That way I know that I'm not going to handle it overly much. Get my fingerprints in it, and that the tape is going to stick well to it. As you can see, I've started in there. That's nice and smooth looking. I'm going to continue right around the whole rim with that, and then I'm going to do the other side. So I'll show you what I've got done when I'm finished. Okay, just wanted to talk about this tape a little bit more. I'd say there's a leftover piece. You can see where I cut the end off. I like to make a nice round end on it. That's where that little overlap section in an earlier clip was showing. It has less tendency to draw the eye than a straight across cut, I find. And make sure if you're going to try this, use a good quality aluminum duct tape. Don't buy something that you got at the dollar store and try it with that, because it won't work right. Get a good quality duct tape like 3M or something like that, because the adhesive on that stuff is vicious. It will rip the paint right off if you try to remove the tape. So once that's down there in place, it's staying there until you literally scrape it off. And as far as keeping that nice and shiny like that, I find that maybe twice a year I might take a little bit of Mother's or some sort of polish to it, and then just give it a quick coat of, a nice coat of like carnauba wax or something like that, just to prevent corrosion. And like I say, once, twice a year, that's all you have to do with this, unless you're leaving it out in the rain all the time, of course, then you'd have to do it more often than that. But anyway, and as you're laying this down, don't go any more than 4 inches, a 4-inch length at any given time. That way you can make sure you're laying it out nice and even. And this tape doesn't steer like electrical tape or even masking tape. If it's going in the wrong direction, it wants to keep going in the wrong direction. And you can adjust it a bit, but if you try to bend the tape, you'll either tear it or you'll kink it, one or the other. And the kinks are really hard to work out of this. Once you get it on here, it's almost impossible to work a kink out of that metal tape, right? But it's like trying to work a kink out of tin foil, if you've ever tried to do that. But anyways, this little trick is good for all kinds of stuff. So anyway, try it out sometime. Well, I got these new instruments that the owners purchased somewhere. Anyway, they're not like the India ones. The ones that are made in India are high like this one. You notice how the instrument doesn't sit down in that rubber binnacle. But anyway, they'll still work. But the only difference between these, well, these don't look as much like the original Smith's ones either. But in any case, the Indian-made ones at least look a lot more like the originals. But in any case, the drive on these has a smaller hole on the input side, so the standard cable won't fit in them unless you do things you're not supposed to do to cables. Anyways, I had to grind the end down till I got to the inner cable and then solder a bit over that so that I could then file the solder down into a square shape that would fit into these. So hopefully these two instruments will work. And, well, they're nice and clean and shiny at least, even if the rubbers aren't all that great that are holding them. But they'll still do the trick, I think. So, yeah, so those are in there. Something else done while I'm waiting for my machine shop stuff to get done. Right, well, on to something else. This is something I was asked to do by Scott and Alex, was to get the old, get these badges looking nice. So the best way to do that was just to strip them right down to the bare metal. And anyway, what I'm going to do is paint some of that candy red that I did the old Commando with there this spring in the red section here. And the star looks so good chromed that I think I'm just going to leave it chrome, because this is not a restoration. This is just a bring it back to life thing, so I can have a little bit of artistic license with that. And I'll probably paint this intersection here white, and maybe I'll paint the BSA red. Anyway, I'll get on with that, and like I say, put a little coat of that stuff on there. Of course, all this stuff has to be masked up first, so that's what I got to get done first. So let's get on with it. I don't know if you can hear that in the background or not, but man, it is pouring out tonight. Anyway, I got the red metal cast candy on that the red section of these, and I'm pretty happy with the way they look. So next thing to do will be put a little white paint in this area of the badge, and I might paint the BSA red, or if it looks good with the chrome alone, I just might leave it alone with just the chrome. Let's see what happens anyway. I'm sorry that that this video hasn't had much in the way of engine work in it. As I mentioned several times, I'm still waiting for the cylinders and for the crankshaft to come back from the machine shop there. And I digress for a moment and tell you I finally found out what these are. When I was a little boy, my father had one of these that was on a stand, kind of like that, and he used it as an ashtray. Anyway, he didn't know for sure what it was, but he figured it was a cap from a mortar shell or something. Anyway, I finally found out that it's the fuse cap from a star shell, which the Navy used to light up the bad guys at night. So anyway, I finally found out what that is. I digress. It has nothing to do with motorcycles, so I apologize for that. Anyway, I'll get on with these badges and we'll see how they come out. Right, that's it for that. I'm pretty happy with the way those came out, so I'll let them dry out here in the sunshine. Okay, well, with the badges ready to go on, I think I'm going to call her done for this week. Again, I apologize for not having a lot of engine work on this particular video, but in the next video I should be able to get those parts back from the shop and start reassembling the engine, and we'll get on with that when we get on with that. So thanks for watching. Be good to each other. We'll see you next time.